The Galaxy Council chamber was vast and bright, built from polished stone and glass that shimmered with the glow of 1,000 stars. It was said that the chamber itself was older than many of the species who now filled its seats. Rows of long curved platforms rose in circles around a central floor, where any delegate could speak to the gathered council. Voices often clashed within the chamber, for it was a place of endless arguments, compromises, and deals. On this day, the voices were louder than usual, because a troubling report had shaken the council. The report spoke of Earth, a world that many considered unimportant. It was a planet that had joined the council only a short time ago. The human race was small compared to the great powers of the galaxy. Their fleets were few, their colonies still young, and their influence almost non-existent. Many council members thought of them as a species still learning how to survive in the wider galaxy. They were often spoken of with mild amusement or brushed aside in debates. But the report changed the tone of the chamber. A coalition of outer worlds known for their aggression had attacked Earth. Fleets had entered human space, cities had been struck, and settlements burned. Some species whispered that humanity would not last long. Others believed this was simply the natural order of things. In the galaxy, the weak often fell and the strong endured. That was the way of history. On the high platforms, delegates argued about what should be done. A tall, scaled envoy from the Zelkar species slammed his claw against the railing. "It is not our matter." The humans accepted council membership, but chose not to bind themselves with defensive treaties. If they are attacked, it is their own burden. From another platform, a feathered delegate of the Sorois let out a sharp call. "If we ignore this, then what of our agreements? Humanity may be small, but they are members. If we fail them, what does that say about the council itself?" A third voice, deep and heavy, rose from the Varun seats. Their representative, covered in thick armor like plates, spoke slowly. "We must consider carefully. If we defend them, we may invite war with the coalition that struck them. Why should we endanger our fleets for one fragile world?" The debate dragged on. Some shouted for honor, others for caution, and still more for indifference. The chamber had heard this pattern many times before, when a weaker race was under threat. Usually the council did nothing. They let events decide the outcome. Yet as they argued, the chamber grew uneasy, for a human was scheduled to speak that very day. At first, few cared. They thought the human would beg for aid, plead for ships and supplies. That was common. Many races had once stood on the floor in desperation, asking for help that never came. Most believed this would be no different. Then the chamber doors opened. A single figure entered, walking with a steady pace toward the center floor. His uniform was plain, dark in color, marked only with a simple emblem of Earth. His face was worn, carrying the lines of long service. His eyes were sharp, filled with a calm strength that unsettled many who looked upon him. This was General Aaron, chosen by his people to stand before the council. He did not walk like one who came to beg. He walked like one who had already decided his path. The chamber fell into uneasy quiet as he reached the speaking platform. His boots echoed on the stone floor. The light of the stars reflected across his figure. He stood without bowing, without hesitation, and raised his gaze to the thousands of eyes upon him. The presiding council voice, an ancient being of shimmering light, addressed him. "Representative of Earth, you may speak. State your matter before the council." Aaron placed his hands behind his back. His voice was steady, carrying across the vast space without need for force. "I will speak not as a politician, but as a soldier of my people. I stand before you to declare what has been done. A coalition of worlds has crossed into our skies. They have attacked our cities. They have struck at our colonies. They have spilled human blood on human soil. They have invaded our home." The words rang out like a strike of iron. For a long moment, the chamber was utterly silent. Then the voices rose at once. "They are exaggerating. Humans cannot stand against such fleets. This is not our concern." But Aaron did not look shaken by their noise. He stood as if the storm of voices was nothing more than distant wind. His gaze swept across the countless platforms, meeting eyes that quickly turned away. The presiding voice called for order, and the noise dimmed again. "General Aaron, the council has heard your statement. What do you seek? Aid? Mediation? A council investigation?" Aaron's reply was firm. "I do not seek pity. I do not seek excuses. I came to speak the truth of what has been done. You allowed it to happen. You sat here in debate while fleets moved to strike us. You knew of their aggression, yet you did nothing. That silence gave them courage. That inaction gave them strength. Gasps echoed across the chamber. Never had a new race spoken in such a way. Accusing the council itself was considered unthinkable. Yet the human general did not falter. The Zelkar envoy hissed in anger. You dare blame us for your weakness? Your world was unprepared. You lacked allies. Do not put your failings upon this council. Arin turned his eyes toward the envoy, his voice steady. Weakness is when a people fall and do not rise. Weakness is when they surrender before the fight is finished. We are not weak. We endure, we fight. You will see this truth soon enough. The feathered Sorois delegate leaned forward, curious rather than hostile. Then why come here at all if not to seek help? Arin answered without hesitation. Because the truth must be spoken in this hall. Humanity will not be erased. Humanity will not bow. You believe we are too small to matter. Yet you forget that we are the children of a world that taught us struggle from the moment we first walked its soil. Fire, storm, hunger, war, we have faced them all and we remain. If you think fleets and bombs will end us, then you do not understand what it means to be human. Once more silence fell. This time it was heavier. The council was not used to such words. They were used to pleading, bargaining, or silence. But this human general spoke as if he carried the weight of a people behind him. Arin let the silence linger before he spoke again. Mark this day. Humanity has been struck, but we are not broken. We will rise, and when we rise, the galaxy will know who we are. He stepped back from the platform, his declaration complete. Without waiting for questions or further debate, he turned and walked toward the chamber doors. His footsteps echoed once again, fading only as the doors closed behind him. In his absence, the chamber remained frozen. Delegates looked at one another, unsure of what had just happened. For the first time in generations, the Galaxy Council had fallen into silence. The chamber of the Galaxy Council still carried the echo of General Arin's words long after he had left. Delegates sat in uneasy silence, their feathers, scales, and tendrils shifting with tension. They were not used to silence. The chamber was known for endless talk, for voices rising and falling like waves. Yet after the humans' declaration, not a single envoy had the strength to break the stillness. At last, the presiding voice of the council, an elder being of light, called for order. Its shimmering form pulsed faintly as it spoke. The representative of Earth has delivered his words. They will be placed into record. The floor remains open for response. The first to rise was the Zelkar envoy, who could never remain quiet for long. His scales shone like sharp stone and his eyes burned with disdain. You all heard him. A human general dares to accuse us, the council, of failure. He dares to lay blame at our feet. This is arrogance, nothing more. They are a young species, too proud to understand the weight of history. Earth will fall and the galaxy will move on. Murmurs spread across the chamber, but not all agreed. The Sorois delegate, feathers shining in soft silver light, gave a sharp call before speaking. Arrogance, perhaps. Yet did you not feel the force of his words? He did not beg, he did not plead. He declared, "No new race has spoken to this council in such a way. You may dismiss his voice, but I believe we have seen something rare today." The Varun delegate shifted heavily, his armor-like skin grinding against itself. His deep voice rumbled through the chamber. "Rare, yes, but dangerous. The human general has accused this council openly. If humanity rises as he claims, it may not rise as a friend." These words struck unease through many delegates. A small species rising in anger was not a concern. But if humanity truly endured, as the general said, if they truly could resist, then the galaxy might face a power they had overlooked. Another delegate, from the thin and graceful oral species, raised a hand. "I remind the council that humanity is still small. Their fleets are few. Their colonies are young. The coalition that attacked them holds hundreds of ships. The humans cannot hope to stand against such strength. His declaration may inspire his own kind, but it will not change the truth." The presiding voice pulsed faintly again. "And yet the declaration has been made. Humanity claims it will rise. How does the council answer?" The question hung heavy in the chamber. Some delegates wanted to dismiss it as prideful talk. Others began to wonder if they had misjudged humanity. Far away, beyond the chamber walls, General Arin walked through the long corridors of the council station. His steps were steady, though his heart carried the weight of what he had said. He had not come to plead for ships. He had not come to bow before powers who would never respect him. He had come to make the galaxy listen. He remembered the faces of his people, the burning cities of Earth, the cries of those who had lost everything. He had promised himself he would not let their voices fade into silence. Even if the Council turned their backs, humanity would endure. That was why he spoke with such force. That was why he had declared their truth. In the chamber, debate continued. The Sorois delegate spread her wings lightly. Perhaps we should consider. If the humans truly resist, if they strike back, then the balance of power will shift. Would it not be wise to see what comes of their struggle before we decide? The Zelkar envoy hissed. You speak as though they matter. They are nothing more than a flame that will burn out. The Varun delegate shook his heavy head. Do not dismiss fire. Even a small flame can spread into a storm if left to grow. The chamber grew restless. No one had expected the humans to stand so boldly. They had thought of Earth as a quiet world, humble in its place. Now the Council had seen another side. They had seen a human who carried the will of his people like a weapon. At that moment, an envoy from the Yelth species, known for calm and patience, raised his voice. His form was translucent, glowing faintly from within. We sit here and argue, yet perhaps we are missing what matters most. The human did not ask for aid. He did not request protection. He only declared what was done. That in itself is telling. They may not need us as much as we think. This thought spread through the Council like a quiet storm. If humanity was truly preparing to fight alone, what would that mean for the galaxy? Would they rise in anger against those who ignored them? Would they remember the silence of the Council as betrayal? The presiding voice asked once more, What answer shall the Council give to Earth? No one could speak. Some looked down in shame, others in calculation. The silence was longer than before, stretching into an unease that none could break. The chamber, known for endless debate, had lost its voice. Meanwhile, General Aaron reached the docking bay where a single human ship waited for him. His officers stood at attention, their faces worn from long hours of travel and long nights without rest. They had heard the debates. They had seen the scorn of the other species. Now they looked to him, waiting for his word. He spoke calmly. The Council has heard us. That is enough. We do not wait for their ships. We do not wait for their mercy. We return to Earth, we prepare. His officers nodded. They did not ask questions. They did not doubt. They had heard his declaration, and they carried it with them as if it was a shield. As their ship departed the station, the stars stretched out before them. Beyond those stars, fleets still threatened their world, but now the galaxy itself had heard their voice. That was the first step. Back in the Council chamber, the silence deepened. Delegates shifted in their seats, unable to shake the memory of Aaron's words. They thought of the phrase that would not leave their minds. You invaded our home. The Council had faced many declarations before. They had heard cries for help, threats of war, promises of peace. But never had a new race spoken in such a way. It was not just anger. It was conviction. It was a warning. And though many still doubted, some began to fear that the warning would prove true. Humanity had declared itself. Humanity had promised to rise, and the galaxy was no longer certain of its place. The human ship cut through the silent dark of space, its engines glowing faintly against the endless black. Inside, General Aaron sat with his officers in the command chamber. The Council's grand station was now far behind them, and before them stretched the path to Earth. His words had been spoken, and the galaxy had heard them. But words alone could not hold back fleets. Action would decide the fate of humanity. Aaron leaned forward, studying the glowing star charts projected above the table. Red marks showed the advance of the enemy coalition. They had struck Earth's outer colonies first, burning settlements and scattering survivors. Now their fleets lingered at the edge of the solar system, waiting for the chance to strike at Earth itself. One of his officers, Commander Rao, spoke in a low voice. General, many believe we cannot stand against them. Their numbers are too great. Their fleets are too large. Aaron looked at him calmly. Numbers do not decide everything. Strength is not only counted in ships. It is found in will. We have endured too much to fall now, and I gave them a warning. The galaxy thinks we are cornered, but they will see what it means when humanity fights back. The officers around the table nodded. They were tired, but their eyes carried the same fire as their general. They knew their world was under threat, yet they also knew they carried something stronger than fear. Back on Earth, preparations were already underway. Cities rebuilt their defenses. Factories turned every resource into ships and weapons, and people who had never seen battle before trained side by side with veterans. Farmers, workers, scientists, and soldiers all stood together, for this was no ordinary war. This was survival. In orbit, human fleets gathered. They were not as vast as the enemy, but they were organized with precision. Each ship carried crews who understood that defeat was not an option. Every pilot, every engineer, every soldier carried the same thought: this is our home, and we will not give it away. News of the Council's silence reached Earth, but instead of despair, it sparked determination. If the galaxy would not help, then humanity would stand alone, and if they survived, they would remember. Meanwhile, across the stars, whispers spread among other races. Delegates carried Aaron's words back to their worlds. Some mocked him. Others feared him. A few began to watch closely, waiting to see if humanity would truly rise. In the capital city of the Zelkar species, leaders met in secret. One of them slammed his claw against the stone table. The humans must not be underestimated. They speak boldly, and boldness can inspire. If they resist longer than expected, their defiance may spread to others. We must crush them quickly. But in the halls of the Sorois, the feathered leaders debated differently. One of them tilted her head thoughtfully. We saw their general. We heard his words. They may be small now, but they remind us of our own beginning. If they endure, they may become a power we cannot ignore. Perhaps it is wise not to oppose them too openly. The galaxy was beginning to change, even as battles had not yet begun. On the journey back to Earth, General Aaron called his officers again. You have all heard my words to the Council. What I said was not only for them. It was for us. Humanity cannot wait for others to save us. We must become the storm that no enemy can stand against. His officers listened closely as he continued. Our fleets will not fight as theirs do. We cannot match their numbers, so we must outthink them. We must strike where they are weakest. We must show them that every battle with us will cost them more than they can afford. Commander Raoul asked, and if the coalition throws everything at Earth? Aaron's eyes grew hard. Then they will learn what it means to fight a people who refuse to surrender. They will learn that we are not prey. They will learn that even in defeat, we are dangerous. The ship sped on, carrying his warning not only to the Council, but to his own people. Humanity would not fight with desperation. Humanity would fight with certainty. When Aaron's fleet finally reached Earth, he saw with his own eyes the determination of his people. From orbit, the planet glowed with lights of factories and shipyards. New vessels rose from construction bays, still gleaming with fresh metal. The skies were alive with movement, as pilots trained and transports carried supplies to every defense post. Earth itself had become a fortress. Aaron's ship docked at the central command station. As he stepped onto the platform, cheers rose from soldiers and workers alike. They had heard of his words in the council chamber. They had heard that he did not bow, that he did not plead. To them, he had become the voice of Earth. A young technician approached him, her uniform stained with oil from long hours of labor. General, we will not fail. Whatever comes, we will stand with you. Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder. It is not me you stand with. It is Earth, remember that, and we cannot be broken. Days turned into weeks, and the enemy coalition moved closer. Their fleets massed at the edge of the system, confident in their numbers. They believed Earth would fall easily, as so many other worlds had. They did not understand the warning Aaron had given. From the human command chamber, Aaron watched the enemy fleets gather on the edge of the star charts. His voice carried steady and clear as he spoke to his commanders. They think they face only a planet. They are wrong. They face every child of Earth, every soul who has lived and fought upon this world. They face a people who learned to rise from hardship again and again. They face humanity. Let them come. We are ready. The warning he had given to the Council was no longer just words. It had become reality. Humanity was awake, and the galaxy would soon learn that the fire lit on Earth would not be easily put out. The Galaxy Council chamber had never been this quiet. For centuries, it had been a place of endless argument, of voices clashing and echoing against stone walls and glass ceilings. But now the silence pressed down like a heavy weight. General Aaron's declaration still lingered in every mind. You invaded our home. Those words had struck deeper than any threat, and none of the delegates could shake them away. Delegates shifted uneasily in their seats. Some tapped claws against the railing. Others ruffled feathers or tightened tendrils around themselves. The presiding voice of light, usually calm, now pulsed faintly as if disturbed. The chamber had seen empires rise and fall, but rarely had a new species walked in and shattered the rhythm of the council with so few words. Finally, the Zelkar envoy broke the silence, his scaled body rigid with anger. This is dangerous. The humans dare to accuse the council, and yet we sit here in silence as if his words have power. We must not let one small race bend the will of this chamber. But his voice did not echo with the same strength as before. Too many had felt the weight of the humans' conviction. The Sorois delegate spoke next, her feathers shimmering with unease. You call them small, yet small flames can burn forests. What if he is right? What if they rise, not fall? His words were not empty. He spoke as one who knew his people would endure. The Varun delegate, whose heavy form rarely shifted, leaned forward slowly. The silence in this chamber speaks for itself. We all felt something when he spoke. We may dismiss them as weak, but if they survive, then this silence will mark the moment we realized what they truly are. Some delegates muttered in disagreement. Others sat frozen, unwilling to speak at all. The presiding voice finally answered, its light flickering faintly. The chamber has always been full of words, but now words have failed us. Perhaps that in itself is a sign of change. Outside the chamber, news of Aaron's speech spread quickly. Across the galaxy, different peoples reacted in different ways. On the worlds of the coalition that had invaded Earth, leaders dismissed the speech as nothing more than pride. Let them speak, one warlord said. When their fleets are ashes, no one will remember their words. Yet among the lower ranks, whispers began to spread. Some who had fought against humans spoke of battles that had not gone as easily as expected. They remembered ambushes, daring strikes, and human soldiers who fought long after defeat seemed certain. On neutral worlds, traders and wanderers spoke of the human general with fascination. He did not beg, they said. He declared. That is something new. Small groups began to wonder if Earth might truly stand. On Earth itself, Aaron's words had reached every city, every settlement, every fleet. The people who once feared they were alone now felt strength. They knew the council would not save them, but they also knew they did not need saving. Their general had spoken for them, and in his voice they heard their own will to fight. Factories worked without pause, turning every piece of metal into armor and ships. Training fields filled with volunteers. Old veterans who thought their service had ended returned to guide the young. Families carried both hope and fear, but in both there was determination. Earth had become one body, united by the simple truth Aaron had spoken. Their home had been invaded, and they would not let it be taken. At the edge of the system, the coalition gathered. Their fleet stretched across space like a wall of steel. Thousands of ships prepared to advance, confident that victory would be swift. Yet even among them, unease began to grow. Reports came of human defenses stronger than expected. Patrols disappeared into ambushes. Supplies vanished in raids. The humans were not fighting like prey. They were fighting like hunters. Inside the command hall on Earth, General Aaron stood before his officers once more. The star maps glowed, showing the enemy's steady advance. His voice was calm but sharp. They believe we are weak. They believe we cannot hold. But they do not understand what it means to fight for your home. Every person on this world is part of this defense. Every city is a fortress. Every ship is a blade. Let the coalition come. They will find not prey but resistance. Commander Raul asked, and the council general? Will they remain silent? Aaron's eyes narrowed. Their silence is their answer. Do not look to them for help. Let them watch. Let them see what we do. When the galaxy remembers these days, it will not remember the council's silence. It will remember that humanity stood alone and did not break. The silence of the council had become more than an absence of words. It had become a shadow, a mark of shame for some and fear for others. And in that silence, humanity's voice had grown louder. Back in the council chamber, more debates tried to spark, but they died quickly. Every time a delegate spoke against humanity, doubt crept into the words. Every time another called for caution, the chamber grew uneasy. The presiding voice, who had seen many ages pass, finally spoke in a rare moment of reflection. Perhaps history is being written outside these walls. Perhaps we, for once, are not its authors. The delegates looked at one another but could not reply. The chamber was again swallowed by silence. On Earth, though, there was no silence. There was the roar of engines as new ships launched into orbit. There was the hammer of industry as weapons were forged. There was the steady rhythm of training fields where people learned to fight together. There was the quiet but powerful heartbeat of a world that had chosen to endure. In the coming days, the coalition fleets would move. They would test Earth's defenses. They would believe victory certain, but they would also hear the echo of words spoken in the council chamber. Words that had spread across the stars. You invaded our home. And when the battle came, every human who stood on Earth or in orbit would fight with those words in their heart. They would fight knowing that silence had fallen in the council, but their own voices, their own actions would break that silence forever. The galaxy had paused to listen. Now it would watch. Humanity had declared its warning. Humanity had prepared its defense. The silence of the council was not the end. It was only the beginning. The first rays of dawn on Earth lit the surface in a quiet gold. Cities that had been darkened by fear now glowed with life and movement. From the orbiting command stations, General Aaron watched the planet he had sworn to protect. Earth was alive with determination, and every light that flickered below was a promise. Humanity would not yield. Outside the atmosphere, fleets from the enemy coalition began to move. They approached in formation, confident in their strength and prepared for what they assumed would be a swift victory. Thousands of ships stretched across space, weapons ready, energy fields humming. From the coalition's perspective, Earth was a minor target. They did not consider that they were about to face a species that had learned, in its own way, to turn weakness into strength. Aaron stood on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by officers who had become his closest companions in the long journey from the council station. His eyes traced the enemy formation carefully, calculating every possibility. They believe in their numbers, he said softly, but numbers do not measure courage, strategy, or heart. They have underestimated humanity. They always have. Commander Rao leaned forward. General, our fleets are ready. All positions have been reinforced. Earth's defenses are prepared. We have trained for this day. Aaron nodded. Yes, and more than that, we have our people. Every citizen, every soldier, every pilot knows what is at stake. Fear may exist, but it is tempered by purpose. They fight because they must, but also because they choose to protect their home. That is a strength no fleet can match. Below, orbital defense platforms rose silently like sentinels, their weapons aligned toward approaching ships. Pilots climbed into cockpits, their faces resolute, hands steady. In training simulations, they had learned to anticipate the enemy's moves. Now those simulations became real. Every maneuver mattered. Every decision carried weight. And every soul aboard these ships understood that failure was not an option. As the first enemy scouts entered Earth's defense perimeter, Aaron gave the order. Deploy interceptors. Target their lead ships. Do not give them the opportunity to advance further than they must. Fleets of human ships launched in perfect synchrony. They moved faster than the enemy anticipated. Their weapons precise, their formations tight. The scouts were caught off guard. Many ships were destroyed before they could even call for reinforcements. The coalition had expected fear. They found calculation, courage, and a discipline born of survival. On Earth, citizens watched the initial skirmishes unfold through communication networks. There was fear, yes, but also wonder. They had heard their general's declaration. They had seen the council fall silent. Now they witnessed their home fight back in a way that no one had predicted. Humanity had risen. Inside the flagship, Aaron observed the enemy's response. They are regrouping, he said. They do not expect resistance so early, so organized. Their confidence falters, and with that faltering comes mistakes. A young communications officer spoke up. General, their main fleet is preparing to enter orbit. They intend to overwhelm us with sheer numbers. Aaron's expression did not waver. Then we must be ready. Every strategy we have trained for will be tested. But remember this, our strength is not just our weapons. It is our unity, our courage, our resolve. Let them see that a home defended with will cannot be broken by numbers alone. The enemy's main fleet entered orbit in a vast wall of steel. Their energy weapons flared across the darkness of space. They believed Earth would crumble under their assault. Yet the human defenses held firm. Energy shields shimmered, absorbing attacks that could have destroyed smaller worlds. Human fleets moved like a single organism, anticipating, striking, and retreating as necessary. The coalition's commanders were shocked. They had assumed humanity would scatter or surrender when faced with such overwhelming force. They had underestimated the humans' resolve. Orders were shouted across their ships. Adjust formations. Increase firepower. Use boarding pods. Nothing worked as expected. Humanity adapted faster than anyone had anticipated. Aaron's fleet struck again, targeting weak points in the enemy lines. Small groups of ships maneuvered with precision, disabling critical engines and disrupting their formations. The human fleet was smaller, yet every move was calculated. Each ship acted in harmony with the others, turning what should have been a disadvantage into an advantage. Below on Earth, civilians and support teams worked tirelessly. Orbital stations provided supplies, repaired damaged ships, and maintained communications. Scientists monitored energy flows, adjusting defensive shields in real time. Every citizen contributed not as observers but as participants in the defense of their home. In the council chamber far across the galaxy, news of humanity's resistance reached the delegates. The Zelkar envoy clenched his claws, unable to hide his surprise. They are not defeated. They are pushing back. The Soroy's delegate, feathers trembling slightly, said softly, "Perhaps we underestimated them. Perhaps we always have." Even the presiding voice of light paused, its usual calm disturbed by the unfolding events. For the first time, the council was not watching humanity as a minor member. They were watching a species rise in defiance and strength. Back in orbit, Aaron received reports from multiple fronts. Our defense lines are holding. Enemy formations are breaking. They did not expect us to strike back so swiftly. Commander Rao smiled faintly. Your warning to the Council General was not just words. It is reality. They see what happens when humanity fights for its home. Aaron's eyes did not leave the main display. It is only the beginning. They will try again. They will not accept defeat easily, but every strike they make, every move they plan only teaches them the cost of underestimating us. We are not a species to be ignored or dismissed. We are humans and we endure. The coalition began to retreat, reforming at a distance to assess the situation. Their losses were greater than expected, and their confidence was shaken. They had assumed superiority, yet every step had been met with resistance, every advance met with strategy and determination. They realized too late that humanity's will was a weapon more powerful than any fleet. On Earth, celebrations were quiet but full of pride. Families watched from the surface, knowing their world had survived the first wave of attacks. They understood that the battles were far from over, yet hope burned brighter than fear. Humanity had proven something crucial. They could defend themselves. They could survive. And they could rise against forces that sought to dominate them. Aaron stood once more before his officers. We have shown them our strength. We have shown the galaxy that humans are not prey. Let this be a lesson that when a species is cornered, when its home is threatened, it does not surrender. It rises. Remember this. Humanity has declared itself, and now the galaxy must acknowledge it. The officers nodded, their eyes filled with respect, determination, and pride. They had witnessed the turning point. Humanity had faced overwhelming odds and had not faltered. They had turned the enemy's confidence into doubt, their numbers into weakness, and their arrogance into caution. In the days that followed, news traveled faster than ever across human communications and across the galaxy. The coalition retreated temporarily, reconsidering their strategies. Worlds that had doubted humanity began to watch more closely, some reconsidering alliances, some fearing what would come next. The council, once silent, began to understand the truth. Humans were no longer a minor member. They were a rising power, a force to be respected. On the surface of Earth, children looked at the night sky with wonder, seeing flashes of distant battles. Citizens rebuilt what had been damaged, strengthened what had already been strong, and trained for the days ahead. Humanity had proven it could endure, and now it prepared to shape the future. General Aaron walked through the command center, pausing to look at every officer and crew member. Today we have turned the tide. Tomorrow we will continue to rise. We do not fight because we desire war. We fight because we protect our home. And in doing so, we define ourselves as humans. Never forget this moment, for it will be remembered across the stars. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would not soon forget. A species that had once been underestimated, dismissed as weak and insignificant, had shown courage, intelligence, and unity. Humanity had declared itself, and the universe had listened. The first battle was only the beginning. The war would continue, challenges would arise, and enemies would return. Yet humanity had proven a crucial truth. Home was worth fighting for. and a people united in defense could overcome impossible odds. And as the stars glittered above Earth, Aaron looked out into the infinite darkness and smiled. Humanity had risen, and the turning point had been reached. The Galaxy Council, the Coalition, and the entire universe now had to acknowledge the new reality. Humanity would no longer be ignored. The future of the galaxy had changed, and Earth stood ready to shape it.